Now, if you came here for a 2024 rut moon phase forecast, you're going to be in for something a little bit different, because I really want to help you understand why the rut takes place, really how you can hunt the rut and be effective. You know, we're always looking for when is it going to be the best time to hunt during the fall. And I'll use this spot for an example. I came in here on a cold front, I believe October 27th, and cold front day, and that's when I love to hunt. And I'll tell you about the moon here in a second, but I came in here because of the weather. And a lot of times folks, hunters, like to focus on, well, it's a certain temperature, it's a certain condition, a certain barometric pressure. Well, really, it doesn't have anything to do with an absolute number of anything. You look at that deer one year, on a given day, you hunt, the high might have been a high of 36. And the next year, you shot a buck on a day where it was a high of 57. And someone will be a little bit confused then, and they'll say, well, you know, 36 here, 57 here, that temperature doesn't matter. It's a change in temperature that matters. And so when I came in here, the temperature over a couple day period had dropped 15 to 20 degrees. And that's what pushes deer to be on their feet. And what I mean by that is that the larger the storm that comes through, the more deer miss quality feedings. Deer feed 5 times in a 24-hour period, like a baby, a rhythmic pattern feeder. I have about a 6-week at home right now. And Lily's her name, and she likes to feed about every 2 to 3 hours. And if she misses a feeding, which we don't let her, she's spoiled, I guess. But that's what you do, you spoil babies, right? But bottom line is she doesn't miss a feeding. If she did, I know she'd be screaming and crying for a couple hours until she cried. She'd probably cry herself to sleep because she'd be so exhausted, and then she'd wake up hungry, hunger pains. She'd cry again. Deer are the same way. They're rhythmic pattern feeders. So when they miss quality feedings, they want to put the feed bag on. When you have the temperature drop, let's say it's November and it's unseasonably warm for around here. It's a high of 78, 77, 76, 79, 78, 5 days in a row. And then all of a sudden there's daytime highs that are 52. Well, another November, 32 might be that magical temperature, where in this case 72 or 52 degrees would have represented a 25-degree drop in temperature over a 1 to 2 day period. That's the condition I hunted when I shot bow here last year. A nice 6-year-old buck came in to shoot bow, and I shot bow. It's pretty cool. Passed up a 4-year-old that night before he came in, so it was a great night. It's that change in temperature. Think about it though. If there's a 25-degree drop, that equals high winds, a lot of weather volatility, extreme weather conditions. Could be hard rain, also the wind, hail, sleet, snow, blizzard, whatever that temperature range is. Well, what happens to deer then? Well, if they're sitting back in their bedding areas, they're missing quality feedings. If they're missing quality feedings, again, they get really hungry. But it's not just that. If the temperature drops, they have to burn more energy than they've been used to stay warm, to stay alive. So they're burning energy at a faster pace. And then think about all that noise. Deer are creatures of stress. They live by stress. A big buck likes finding a low stress spot in the woods to bed. That's why he doesn't bed around does and fawns and people and cars and machinery. He likes to find it. If you don't have that depth for him to bed, he's just not there. But deer make decisions based on stress. So when they're sitting back in the woods and it's super windy, you have extreme weather conditions, temperatures dropping, they're losing energy because of a high degree of stress. They're burning energy and they're missing quality feedings, and that puts them on their feet. Notice I haven't mentioned anything about the moon, because if you get all those things happening, I don't even pay attention to the moon. The moon does not dictate when deer are ready to breed. A doe is not influenced to come into estrus because of the moon phase. No different than the leaves around here turn color in the fall. Now, sometimes if there's a hard frost, maybe it turns them a little bit early, but bottom line is early by a few days. I remember when we were in the UP of Michigan that around October 1st, end of September, the leaves could be spectacular. Just beautiful, the hardwood maples. And then you get into the 7th of October. I remember my cousin Britt, he was coming up from Alabama with a friend. They were coming up to go grouse hunting, driving all the way to the UP of Michigan. And I told them about how beautiful the leaves were. We had a giant rainstorm about October 5th, 6th, and all the leaves are down by the 7th. But you know what? That was about the same every year. We never had great leaf color September 27th, and the next year it was October 15th. Or the next year it was September 15th. It was all within a few day window. And that didn't have anything to do with anything else other than the amount of light in the sky. That determines when those leaves go into it. Now, if they're stressed out, look at the trees that have nails in them from people putting garage sale signs on the corner of subdivision. They turn earlier because they're stressed out. Something that might have a cable around a tree's damaged, they'll turn earlier. We planted trees last year. With our drought, we watered them over 30 times throughout the summer. We kept them alive. We actually high-fived this year when their buds on, but they turned earlier last year. They're planted earlier. They're big trees, and they dropped their leaves earlier. Moon phase is the same thing. It doesn't have anything to do with when a buck comes into rut. Now, I do think it influences feeding patterns. What I mean by that, imagine if it's bright with a full moon all night. Those deer living high on the hog, it's social all night. That means if you look at that 5 feedings in a 24-hour period, that means when it gets into that morning feeding where they traditionally might get up and move around a little bit around their bedding area, they might stay put because they're super full from the night before, just like you or I. If we have a giant Thanksgiving meal at 1 o'clock, unless we're seeing relatives and being respectful and trying to be courteous, we don't eat a giant Thanksgiving meal 4 hours later at the next relative. You eat something a little bit lighter. I love turkey spread, for example. Love sandwiches. The bottom line is you don't have this giant meal and then eat again. So if you have giant meals at night because it's safe and social, deer are active out in the fields, it's good weather, it's a bright, they can see predators, then to me they'll feed more, and that means the next feeding, that early morning feeding will be less. That means late morning can be good because if they fed a lot here, not so much here, that means that next one will go up and creates more of a roller coaster. I do believe the moon influences that. When it comes to the timing of the rut, the moon has no influence on the timing of the rut and has no influence on when the leaves change. It really doesn't. They've even done studies, John Azoga, Lou Verm, they have peer-reviewed research articles, scientific research articles that pass scrutiny of peer review, where they would go out and they'd ultrasound does over a 30-year period, a couple thousand does, and then they could go back to the date of conception using ultrasound, no different than they do with a baby, and they could figure out that timing of the rut, it didn't have anything to do with the moon, and it certainly didn't have anything to do with the weather either. Now, weather, like I was hunting here, when you have great weather conditions, you know, bucks and does are always going to breed at the same time every single year. But if it's super warm, super windy, they're going to breed at night more. They're just not moving around during the middle of the day. They don't want to move around during the heat. They don't want to move around when they can't hear. It's not to say they won't. Not to say the rut is a bad time to hunt during the day. Sometimes you just got to go out. But the point is when you want to come in on a deer and you want to apply hunting pressure that one time, you don't want to over apply it so you spook those deer out of an area. You want to conserve a stand. You want to sit in a stand when the time is perfect. Then I watch the weather. And when you put it during that traditional rut time, you know, around here, southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, that rut and pre-rut activity is going to take place sometime during a cold front because that's when they're going to move around during the day. They're going to move around a lot more. You see bucks hitting water holes during the middle of the day, leaving rubs, opening scrapes up. That's going to be October 22nd, October 24th, just like clockwork every single year. If it's super warm, they'll wait a few days, or maybe it happens a little bit early if it's super warm. A little bit early meaning a few days. Actual rutting activity, really breeding activity really starts to pick up the 5th through the 10th, and then it's slamming down where it's on the backside by the 15th around here. If you're down in southern Indiana, Illinois, you can expect that to happen a little bit later. Kansas is a little bit later. When you go down the south, it's all over the chart, and that's why I really hunt weather down in the south, because you can at least bet, because it's sporadic and random rut down there. It could happen over a 3 or 4 month period. Some of the rut is dictated too by, for example, in northern extreme areas where there's a lot of snow, if those fawns are born early, they're born in snow, they die. If they're born late, they're too small going into winter and they die. So that rut is really honed in weather factors too. Not that the weather dictates when they come in, it dictates fawn survival in that repeated pattern of coming to estrus every year. And I know horse breeders, they can actually time when a certain horse can be bred. They can actually time their visit around months in advance, knowing that this horse comes into estrus at this time, and they can time their trips to artificially breed these horses. So it's the same timing every single year for deer, for a lot of creatures. And that's why if you came here wondering when the moon phase was going to be great this year, try to ignore the moon. Really, it has some impact on maybe a late morning sit over a hidden food source next to a big buck bedding area. But even on this food plot right here, I don't expect late morning movement for mature bucks out in this open. I expect them to be out there in a food source, back in the woods somewhere, not out in the open fields either. That's why I like hunting a food source in the afternoon and a bedding area during the morning. I'll sit at a water hole over here in between a bedding area and a food source for all day. But bottom line is, the moon does not impact the timing of the rut. Always follow the weather. And when I came in and hunted bow last year, I don't even know what the moon was. I don't really care. Because when you see those conditions of weather take place of change, it'll put deer on its feet. It might be the next year during that same time period, daytime highs have been in the 50s. Now it's going to be a high of 27. Still the same temperature drop. That's where you're hunting. No different than if it's 75 going down to 52. Still the same conditions. Get it to drop. That's what put deer on their feet. And that's what will help you fill your tag on a mature buck this fall. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I really want to encourage you to check out digital land management through whitetailstrategy.com. These concepts that I manage for and that I go to clients, 1,600 clients in 26 states over the last 20 years, we're putting into a digital platform. So you can take those concepts and you can apply it to anywhere a whitetail roams. Doesn't matter if it's private land or public land. For example, on private land, you could take a food plot, add it to this location, see how it hurts you or helps you in the whole scheme of morning hunting, afternoon hunting, add a cabin, add a road. Check out parking spots on public land where you think clear cuts are and see how that affects your overall hunt with multiple properties in any state where whitetails are and where you hunt. Check it out. Be some of the first to sign up. Check out whitetailstrategy.com. Follow the link, sign up, answer the questions, and we can give you more when we have it available. Thank you.